Hi all, today we're going to be having a look at Craig Reed's critique of atheism/anti-theism. Let's jump in and see what he has to say.
Going all the way back to Nietzsche. Now Nietzsche said God is dead. There are actually two meanings to this. The first meaning in the popular imagination is God is dead, i.e. there ain't no God. You know, woohoo, there's not a God. Okay, he did mean that. But the more important meaning, God is dead, meaning religion is over. Religion as an organizing principle of society is kaput. It no longer will be sufficient. It will no longer provide the cohesion. Now, Nietzsche was not saying that is something to celebrate. Matter of fact, he was very troubled by the implications, and he prophesied the nihilism of the 20th century.
Now, it's true that Nietzsche thought nihilism was a possible outcome, but he didn't think it was inevitable. Often apologists use Nietzsche because they think he was sympathetic to the religious worldview, but he really wasn't. He said a lot of negative things about religion, and was himself an atheist. Take this quote as an example. Quote, "But in the end, one also has to understand that the needs that religion has satisfied, and philosophy is now supposed to satisfy, are not immutable. They can be weakened and exterminated. Consider, for example, that Christian distress of mind that comes from sighing over one's inner depravity and care for one's salvation. All concepts originating in nothing but errors of reasoning and deserving, not satisfaction, but obliteration." End quote. That certainly doesn't sound like a man pleading for religion to maintain its stranglehold over civilization. Also, consider some of the other quotes, such as these. Second, Craig talks about the nihilism of the 20th century, without actually showing any evidence that society as a whole is bending towards nihilism. He just assumes we should take his word for it. I find that Christian apologists, and I don't mean Craig specifically here, often try to drum up fear to support their ideas. It's easier to get someone to agree with you if they're afraid of the supposed outcome. It's easier to get them to agree if they're afraid.
When you dismantle religion, you are going to have to replace it with something. Something that pro-social, that provides the social cohesion and the meaning in people's lives that religion provides. Otherwise, you have the problem of the void. And most atheists avoid the void. Yeah, you're avoiding the void. Yeah, you are. You're avoiding it. The void. Once again, I say it again. You're avoiding the void.
So let me get this straight. We're avoiding the void by confronting reality, but you're not by believing in a resurrection, a talking snake, a boogeyman called Satan, an afterlife for special people who happen to believe in the correct God, and all kinds of other magical nonsense. No, I'm pretty sure that you have that backwards, Craig.
The problem of meaninglessness. If you remember, nature abhors a vacuum. So if you take religion out of people's lives, people are going to organically produce new and more terrible religions. They are going to get together and they're going to automatically start having new religions that are actually evil. They aren't, they aren't like Christianity. They got some good points and some bad points. They're pure evil. That's what's going to happen, or that's what Nietzsche prophesied, and to some degree that is what happened in the 20th century. So,
citation needed. And again, you can notice the use of fear. There's no evidence that if you strip away religion, that people will automatically invent, quote, pure evil religions. In fact, I would argue that the least religious places on earth are also the happiest, most ethical, and best places to live. Not just right now, but throughout history. They outstrip every civilization, both now and in the past. You know what's evil? The Catholic Church sexually abusing children and then moving those predator priests around, allowing them to prey on new victims, and then covering it up for decades. Brought to you by a religious institution that managed to convince billions of people that it spoke for God and should be trusted. The evil goes so deep that even after scandal is revealed, people continue to place their hard-earned money in the collection plate of that vile institution. That's the kind of evil that boggles the mind. I mean, I can barely wrap my head around the sheer number of lives destroyed by the Catholic Church throughout its time on Earth. Craig, you have no idea what will replace religion. You certainly have no idea whether it will be worse than religion, and as far as I can tell, the indicators seem to be going in the opposite direction. Because like I said earlier, the least religious countries also seem to be the best places to live.
Here is the problem with the anti-theist case. Two problems. Problem number one. The anti-theist takes it as an article of faith. Yeah, that word, faith. Yeah, you're using faith. Yes, you are. That if you dismantle religion, you take it as an article of faith that something automatically will be reproduced that is good in its place. You're going to need to provide evidence for that.
Okay, well, here is Exhibit A. Quote, To evaluate the economic effects of a decline in religiosity, the study's authors compared a country's historical gross domestic product per capita between 1900 to 2000 with the results of a cultural values survey from residents of the countries of every age demographic. Researchers found a country's GDP per capita rose as secularism did, by 1,000 after 10 years, 2,800 after 20 years, and 5,000 after 30 years. Researchers called tolerance of individual expression the ultimate driver of economic change. Increases in tolerance of former deviant behaviors like sexuality, divorce, and abortion correlated positively with an increase in GDP per capita, even more steadily than secularism measured alone, as shifting social norms allowed more people, particularly women, to join the workforce and contribute to economic activity. Tolerance of individual expression feeds irreligion, researchers posited, as secular government programs replacing religious institutions as society's prime provider of welfare, resources, and education. Global increases in college attendance, more widely attended by women and minorities as tolerance grew, made for more informed, productive citizenry, another factor in economic development. End quote. Now, obviously I don't have time to provide all the evidence needed, but if wealth and all the things it brings with it aren't good enough for you, here's Exhibit B. You'll notice first I took this from a Christian Today article, so that you couldn't accuse me of bias. And the second thing you'll notice is that the happiest countries are some of the least religious, and wealthiest on Earth. So, the conclusion is no faith is required, Craig. Next.
Because that seems to me, that seems to Jordan Peterson, that seems to like a lot of other people who are trying to think clearly on the subject, that just isn't a given. You dismantle religion, and you are going to need to replace it with something. Because their pro-social structures are not going to organically appear. They're not.
I love how Craig just makes assertions without any backing evidence, but demands we provide him evidence for every straw man argument he can throw at us. Yeah, Craig, we're going to replace it with reality. We already are. It's a slow process, but religion is dying. It's dying because it's not true, and it can't keep up ethically with modern society.
Problem number 2 with anti-theism. On an individual basis, you say there is no crisis of meaning because you're only thinking of you, not the collective. In other words, let's take someone like Shannon Q. Shannon Q is an anti-theist. She walked away from her religion. Does she have a crisis of meaning in her life? No, probably not. You talk to her, no. She says no. She's got a lot of things that she finds meaningful and valuable in her life. But she is bringing more resources to the table than your average human being. First of all, she was raised well. You know, she's an intelligent person who's well educated, and she's got inner emotional resources. So you can take religion out of her life and she's going to be just fine. But she's not everybody. Now we go to East Bumblebutt Trump supporter. What happens when you take religion out of his life?
Well, here's Shannon's reply in your comment section. Oops, I guess there goes that theory. Second, I'm an anti-theist precisely because I'm not thinking just about myself. When I read news stories about women being beaten because religious authorities said she stood too close to her boyfriend, I want that to change. When I get messages from scared children who want to tell their Christian parents that they don't believe in the Christian God, but are terrified of the possible consequences, I want them to be living in a better world. If I just cared about myself, I wouldn't be an anti-theist. I'd just be an atheist who ignored the millions of harms that religion brings with it every day. I wouldn't spend hours making videos like this one. Third, how much is religion contributing to, quote, East Bumblebutt Trump supporters' worldview? I'm Canadian, but I spend a little bit of time paying attention to American politics, and I seem to remember religion playing a part in the election. And would you look at that? Trump promising to do away with laws that forbid religious organizations from openly endorsing political candidates. And color me surprised that among evangelicals, support for Trump is at an all-time high. I just never would have guessed it. And atheists were the least likely to vote for Trump. And you could reliably guess whether someone would vote for Trump based on well-known religious views, such as America being a Christian nation, and opposition to LGBT rights. It can't be. I guess if your main concern is Bumblebutt Trump supporter, removing religion might not be such a bad thing after all.
You, the anti-theist, need to think past yourself. Look ahead to the future in society. If you dismantle religion, you're going to have to rebuild it with something that looks suspiciously close to Christianity, or works just as effectively and just as good as Christianity in producing pro-social benefits.
No, Craig. You talk as if we are solely responsible for replacing Christianity, but that just isn't so. We're telling you you're wrong and pointing out the catastrophic effects your religion, as well as other religions around the world, are having on society and individuals. That doesn't mean we are now responsible for undoing the harm your religion has caused and replacing it with something else. In fact, it's people like you who continue to spread your religion, so if anything, it should be up to you to undo the harm you've contributed to. Now, as a global citizen, I think it's up to everyone to take part in the process. But to pretend as if we're uniquely responsible because we pointed out the errors in your thinking just isn't true. Craig also acts as if there aren't secular philosophies and ethical codes that exist. Secular humanism, for example, is far better than Christianity in my opinion. We already have the tools, we just have to continue to work on them and evolve. No need for religion.
Religion is providing a valuable need. It is filling a need in people's lives that is extraordinarily important, arguably essential. That's what Peterson is arguing. That's what I see. That's actually what Adam Friended sees, too. And he's an atheist. But he's basing that on empirical observation, on sociological study. Religion is, the reason why religion persists and endures is because it is providing something really essential to human beings. And part of that is social cohesion and part of that is meaning, something to live for outside of themselves.
I'm not sure you want to be going with Jordan Peterson for religious advice, or Friended for that matter. There's nothing that religion offers that can't be accomplished without it. And is it really filling a need, or is it filling a need you've been taught you need filled by religion? Do you really need that human sacrifice to feel better about yourself, or were you taught that you did by religion? But since you're so fond of Nietzsche, I'd like to leave you with this quote from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Indeed, the case is even worse than that, according to Nietzsche. Not only do standard moral commitments lack a foundation we thought they had, but stripped of their veneer of unquestionable authority, they prove to have been not just baseless, but positively harmful. Unfortunately, the moralization of our lives has insidiously attached itself to genuine psychological needs, some basic to our condition, others cultivated by the conditions of life under morality, so its corrosive effects cannot simply be removed without further psychological damage. Still worse, the damaging side of morality has implanted itself within us in the form of a genuine self-understanding, making it hard for us to imagine ourselves living any other way. Thus, Nietzsche argues, we are faced with a difficult long-term restoration project, in which the most cherished aspects of our way of life must be ruthlessly investigated, dismantled, and then reconstructed in healthier form, all while we continue somehow to sail the ship of our common ethical life on the high seas. Thanks for watching. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I always enjoy reading them. Take care, and cheers.
I've been with you since God knows when. You pick me up at the club and then you take me home, invite me in. The lights go down and we begin.